Chapter 14. Joab, son of Zeruiah, knew that the king, deep down, still cared for Absalom. So he sent to Tekoa for a wise woman who lived there and instructed her, "Pretend you are in mourning. Dress in black and don't comb your hair, so you'll look like you've been grieving over a dead loved one for a long time. Then go to the king and tell him this." Joab then told her exactly what to say. The woman of Tekoa went to the king, bowed deeply before him in homage, and said, "O king, help." He said, "How can I help?" "I'm a widow," she said. "My husband is dead. I had 2 sons. The 2 of them got into a fight out in the field, and there was no one around to step between them. The one struck the other and killed him. Then the whole family ganged up against me and demanded, 'Hand over this murderer so we can kill him for the life of the brother he murdered.' They want to wipe out the air and snuff out the one spark of life left to me. And then there would be nothing left of my husband, not so much as a name on the face of the earth. So now I've dared come to the king, my master, about all this. They're making my life miserable, and I'm afraid. I said to myself, I'll go to the king. Maybe he'll do something. When the king hears what's going on, he'll step in and rescue me from the abuse of the man who would get rid of me and my son and God's inheritance, the works. As your handmaid, I decided ahead of time. The word of my master, the king, will be the last word in this. For my master is like an angel of God in discerning good and evil. God be with you." The king said, "Go home, and I'll take care of this for you." "I'll take all responsibility for what happens," the woman of Tekoa said. "I don't want to compromise the king and his reputation." "Bring the man who has been harassing you," the king continued. "I'll see to it that he doesn't bother you anymore." "Let the king invoke the name of God," said the woman, "so this self-styled vigilante won't ruin everything, to say nothing of killing my son." "As surely as God lives," he said, "not so much as a hair of your son's head will be lost." Then she asked, "May I say one more thing to my master, the king?" He said, "Go ahead." "Why then," the woman said, "have you done this very thing against God's people? In his verdict, the king convicts himself by not bringing home his exiled son. We all die sometime. Water spilled on the ground can't be gathered up again. But God does not take away life. He works out ways to get the exile back." The king then said, "I'm going to ask you something. Answer me truthfully." "Certainly," she said. "Let my master, the king, speak." The king said, "Is the hand of Joab mixed up in this?" "On your life, my master king, a body can't veer an inch right or left and get by with it in the royal presence. Yes, it was your servant Joab who put me up to this, and put these very words in my mouth. It was because he wanted to turn things around that your servant Joab did this. But my master is as wise as God's angels in knowing how to handle things on this earth." The king spoke to Joab. "All right, I'll do it. Go and bring the young man, Absalom, back." Joab bowed deeply in reverence and blessed the king. "I'm reassured to know that I'm still in your good graces and have your confidence, since the king is taking the counsel of his servant." Joab got up, went to Geshur, and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. The king said, "He may return to his house, but he is not to see me face to face." So Absalom returned home, but was not permitted to see the king. This Absalom, there wasn't a man in all Israel talked about so much for his handsome good looks, and not a blemish on him from head to toe. When he cut his hair, he always cut it short in the spring because it had grown so heavy. The weight of the hair from his head was over 2 pounds. 3 sons were born to Absalom, and 1 daughter. Her name was Tamar, and she was a beauty. Absalom lived in Jerusalem for 2 years, and not once did he see the king face to face. He sent for Joab to get him in to see the king, but Joab still wouldn't budge. He tried a second time, and Joab still wouldn't. So he told his servants, "Listen, Joab's field adjoins mine, and he has a crop of barley in it. Go set fire to it." So Absalom's servants set fire to the field. That got him moving. Joab came to Absalom at home and said, "Why did your servant set my field on fire?" Absalom answered him, "Listen, I sent for you, saying, 'Come, and soon. I want to send you to the king to ask, what's the point of my coming back from Geshur? I'd be better off still there. Let me see the king face to face. If he finds me guilty, then he can put me to death.' Joab went to the king and told him what was going on. Absalom was then summoned. He came and bowed deeply in reverence before him, and the king kissed Absalom. Chapter 15. As time went on, Absalom took to riding in a horse-drawn chariot, with 50 men running in front of him. Early each morning, he would take up his post beside the road at the city gate. When anyone showed up with a case to bring to the king for a decision, Absalom would call him over and say, "Where do you hail from?" And the answer would come, "Your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel." Then Absalom would say, "Look, you've got a strong case, but the king isn't going to listen to you." Then he'd say, "Why doesn't someone make me a judge for this country? Anybody with a case could bring it to me, and I'd settle things fair and square." Whenever someone would treat him with special honor, he'd shrug it off and treat him like an equal, making him feel important. Absalom did this to everyone who came to do business with the king and stole the hearts of everyone in Israel. After 4 years of this, Absalom spoke to the king. "Let me go to Hebron to pay a vow that I made to God. Your servant made a vow when I was living in Geshur in Aram, saying, 'If God will bring me back to Jerusalem, I'll serve him with my life.'" The king said, "Go with my blessing." And he got up and set off for Hebron. Then Absalom sent undercover agents to all the tribes of Israel with the message, "When you hear the blast of the ram's horn trumpet, that's your signal. Shout, 'Absalom is king in Hebron.'" 200 men went with Absalom from Jerusalem, but they had been called together knowing nothing of the plot and made the trip innocently. While Absalom was offering sacrifices, he managed also to involve Ahithophel, the Gilonite, David's advisor, calling him away from his hometown of Gilo. The conspiracy grew powerful, and Absalom's supporters multiplied. Someone came to David with the report, "The whole country is taken up with Absalom." "Up and out of here," called David to all his servants who were with him in Jerusalem. "We've got to run for our lives, or none of us will escape Absalom. Hurry, he's about to pull the city down around our ears and slaughter us all." The king's servants said, "Whatever our master, the king, says, we'll do. We're with you all the way." So the king and his entire household escaped on foot. The king left 10 concubines behind to tend to the palace. And so they left step by step by step, and then paused at the last house as the whole army passed by him. All the Kirithites, all the Pelethites, and the 600 Gittites who had marched with him from Gath went past. The king called out to Ittai the Gittite, "What are you doing here? Go back with King Absalom. You're a stranger here and freshly uprooted from your own country. You arrived only yesterday, and am I going to let you take your chances with us as I live on the road like a gypsy? Go back and take your family with you, and God's grace and truth go with you." But Ittai answered, "As God lives, and my master the king lives, where my master is, that's where I'll be, whether it means life or death." "All right," said David, "go ahead." And they went on, Ittai the Gittite with all his men and all the children he had with him. The whole country was weeping in loud lament as all the people passed by. As the king crossed the brook Kidron, the army headed for the road to the wilderness. Zadok was also there, the Levites with him, carrying God's chest of the covenant. They set the chest of God down, Abiathar standing by, until all the people had evacuated the city. Then the king ordered Zadok, "Take the chest back to the city. If I get back in God's good graces, he'll bring me back and show me where the chest has been set down. But if he says, 'I'm not pleased with you,' well, he can then do with me whatever he pleases." The king directed Zadok the priest, "Here's the plan. Return to the city peacefully, with Ahimaaz your son and Jonathan, Abiathar's son, with you. I'll wait at a spot in the wilderness across the river until I get word from you telling us what's up." So Zadok and Abiathar took the chest of God back to Jerusalem and placed it there, while David went up the Mount of Olives weeping, head covered but barefooted, and the whole army was with him, heads covered and weeping as they ascended. David was told, Ahithophel has joined the conspirators with Absalom. He prayed, "O God, turn Ahithophel's counsel to foolishness." As David approached the top of the hill where God was worshipped, Hushai the Archite, clothes ripped to shreds and dirt on his head, was there waiting for him. David said, "If you come with me, you'll be just one more piece of luggage. Go back to the city and say to Absalom, 'I'm ready to be your servant, O king. I used to be your father's servant. Now I'm your servant.' Do that, and you'll be able to confuse Ahithophel's counsel for me. The priests Zadok and Abiathar are already there. Whatever information you pick up in the palace, tell them. Their 2 sons, Zadok's son Ahimaaz and Abiathar's son Jonathan, are there with them. Anything you pick up can be sent to me by them." Hushai, David's friend, arrived at the same time Absalom was entering Jerusalem.